Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Stay Report. I'm your host, Devin Decker, and joining me, my host companion, Sejan Sarowick. Sejan?
Hey, hi everybody. Hey, what's going on, man?
Not much. Not a whole heck of a lot. I forgot to do my nasal spray, so I'm going to do that while you carry the show for two squeezes of a
Oh, and here we go,
nasal spray
everybody.
bottle.
As he does this without a cough button, everybody, let's go. Let's see if I can distract you long enough. Let's see.
Did you
Oh
even
no, I'm
hear that
losing
I
it.
did it?
Uh,
I'm pretty good. I might not have a cough button, but I can move my nose away from the microphone.
I mean, just imagine that it's like steady cam on you, like Spike Lee style.
Oh, now I want that to happen. Get Spike Lee on the phone.
But no, what's up, Dev?
Not much. I'm fresh from seeing Blinded by the Light, the guy who directed Bend It Like Beckham's movie about Bruce Springsteen. And I saw some other films. So, that's kind of been my life, is just living in the movies.
Sure. Yeah.
And living in the movies and just having a good long weekend. Because it's Victory Day in Rhode Island.
Oh
So,
yeah.
drinking on Saturday, drinking on Sunday, recovery Monday. So,
Fuck yeah, man. I'm jealous. I'm super jealous. But yeah, so you went to an early showing of Blinded by the Light, right?
yeah, it was a Bruce Springsteen fan event, which was a cute way of saying it was a pre-release showing of the movie.
But specifically to people they knew were gonna love it.
I guess. I mean, it didn't feel like anyone in there was a huge Bruce Springsteen fan, which was a little disappointing. And there was nothing extra special for the fans. Not that I would consider myself much of a Bruce Springsteen fan, but the trailers for that film just were so electric
Didn't you
that I
follow that
wanted to
man
see it.
for like a couple of shows or something? Did you work?
Oh my God,
Did you
no,
work?
I was Bob Dylan. I
Bob Dylan. Oh, okay.
understand the confusion between those two
Yeah.
artists.
I thought it was like Bruce Springsteen and Fenway that you had puked
No,
on.
no, no, no.
No, no,
It
no.
was Bob Dylan at Cooperstown Field.
There we go.
So the Baseball Hall of Fame, and I
Adam
believe
Seinfeld episode.
I've said here before, but I have thrown up on the most famous field in baseball history. Because I got food poisoning, something fierce, from a veal parmesan grinder that I ate.
Uh-huh. Yep. Oh man, that is the most George you've ever been in a world in which you are normally Jerry. That was the most George you had ever been.
Yeah,
Um,
that was an adventure. Let's talk about it. I mean, the people that I was with for that trip, we were Seinfeld in every amount of that word. You are
man.
not wrong. The best part about that trip,
Um,
the best part about that trip was, so it was. I mean, we've all done this. If you wanted to get a job in technical theater, then you've had experience with being an overhire crew.
right.
And so this was local overhire for these Bob Dylan shows, but for some reason to do shows in Poughkeepsie and Cooperstown, they hired from Rhode Island.
Did they have to bust you guys out? What the hell did they do?
No, we had to drive. We took I drove
Ah,
my own car to
that's why
Poughkeepsie,
they
New
went with Rhode Island.
York, which
Suckers.
was yeah, right. We got schmucks written on our forehead. And so we drove out. They put us up in a hotel for the night, which was very kind of them to do. So we stayed at that hotel, and then the next day we set up his show in Poughkeepsie, and then we had time to kill. And it's my favorite thing that I've ever done, probably. It's definitely on the short list of cool things that I've done. Is we found a mall that had a movie theater, and we bought tickets to see Accepted, which at this point had been out for, let's say, a month, maybe a month and a half.
Nice.
So, I mean, no one was seeing Accepted on release day. I was alone in the theater with my party when Accepted came out. So you
Uh-huh.
can imagine how many people were in there a month and a half out. God, remember when a movie that even wasn't that good stayed in theaters that long?
Yeah, right.
Man.
When every movie just kind of played because people just liked going to movies. Yeah.
And also because there wasn't 5 films released last Thursday. I bet you could name two of them.
I bet you I couldn't name one right
Wow.
now. I could probably name one, but right now all I can think is Hobbs and Shaw is still number one, so who cares?
Yeah, that's a good point. Um, but yeah, so we buy tickets for Accepted, and then we all found a row of seats and laid down and slept in the movie theater while Accepted played, and the dulcet tones of Justin Long and Jonah Hill, where I believe the torch was passed between those two actors, and just slept there so that we could get a good night's sleep before we would have to be up till like 1 a.m. breaking down Bob Dylan's show, and then drive from that venue to Cooperstown, where we were told you will have to start working at 5 a.m. And we're not going to put you in a hotel for tonight. So, like, it was just like, that was the sleep we got, was during Accepted. And then we had to drive through upstate New York back roads before everybody had Google on their phones. It was the most insane thing that I've ever done, and it was super cool, but exhausted, and like, I ate a veal Parmesan sandwich too fast, and I threw up all over the field, and then like the guy in charge going, so you guys are good to go. Here's your money. Go.
Yeah, I have to say, the more now that I know more details about this story, I feel like when you say veal Parmesan sandwich, you mean cocaine. Lines and lines of cocaine is what you would guess.
It wasn't Eric Clapton. It was Bob Dylan. So there was lines and lines of marijuana cigarettes.
Man, I just can't imagine going for 36 hours setting up staging for Dylan. But
the craziest thing was, we're gonna buy you guys breakfast, and then that never happened. But then there was like a craft services tent, and some of us went over to it, and then we all got in trouble because the help is not supposed to eat there. That's just for talent. And it's like, we were told we could eat. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Stupid. Oh man. So did any of this compare to Blinded by the Light?
Blinded by the Light was excellent. But if you've seen Bend It Like Beckham, you've kind of seen Blinded by the Light.
Okay.
Like,
All
I
right.
feel like
I was worried this was going to be more in the Yesterday camp of like the whole I am Dylan, like I am the Dylan, right? Like,
okay, it's Bruce Springsteen.
But it's not.
It's
Clearly
Bruce
not.
Springsteen.
Oh, right. Well, we kept talking about Bob Dylan, and now I want to talk
I
about
am
that.
the boss. No, it's not that. It's really just a kid, being inspired by the words of Bruce Springsteen, like 10 years out from when he was popular. Like, it's really interesting, the whole narrative of it. And the best part is, remember Sing Street? I feel like we have a special relationship with Sing Street.
Yes,
on
I remember
this show.
Sing Street. I was ready to be shitty about talking about how I can't think about anything but Bob Dylan at the moment, but when you said Sing Street, I had to dial back on that. Yes, I remember Sing Street.
You keep talking about Bob Dylan, man. We're tangled up in the blue
every time
of it.
you say Bruce Springsteen, I have to not picture Bob Dylan. I have to actively not picture Bob Dylan. Born in the USA. That's Bruce Springsteen, right?
That is Bruce Springsteen.
Okay, so I know who Bruce Springsteen is. I just cannot separate him from Bob Dylan.
Greetings from Asbury Park, New Jersey, the E Street Band, Little Steve, who was on The Sopranos. These are things I know. I'm not even like a huge Bruce Springsteen fan, but the movie just looked that good. But like Sing Street, there are those cool moments where they shoot the music videos in Sing Street.
Yeah.
And
so it's a narrative excuse for like music videos in the movie.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But I didn't think that was going to happen. Like the trailer for Blinded by the Light, what really makes it cool is that while he's listening to the songs, like the lyrics show up, and they kind of do that. Like, remember laser shows? Did you ever do like a Pink Floyd laser show?
Oh yeah.
So it's like sort of like a Pink Floyd laser show, but with just the lyrics flying around his head, or like doing cool things with one another. Cool. Like when he's listening to Dancing in the Dark, you can't start a fire without a spark. And then like the word spark like showed up, and then fire came out of it as if spark was a lighter being lit. Like cool stuff like that. So I'm like, I'm all about it. You know what, like, will sell me on a movie is if it has like a good way of showing me the characters' text messages.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. I had that exact thought today rewatching Fault in Our Stars.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, that's probably why I liked Nerves so much. I'll be completely honest with you.
nice,
It's just
very
like,
nice.
wow, you guys did like a really good text message, like heads up for me as an audience member. So like
Trying to
that,
remember, I was watching something that did them the other day and put them on the environment, and I was like, that was cool for a second. Remember when we did that? We put text on the environment, like it like matched the park bench or like the floor, like it ended up with like the weird angle and the texture of the tree that it was on or some shit. Like,
yeah. Oh, I feel like I know what you're talking about. Like I feel like I saw that recently too, and I'm like, oh, that was fun. We had fun before.
well, the biggest enemy, I mean, the biggest perpetrator of that was Splinter Cell Conviction, where every time you walked into a new space, the like name of the space was up on the wall or something ridiculous. Like, if you want a good example of that.
Okay. Thank you. But blah, 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 words and places and phrases. But yeah, so I thought that was all it was going to be, was like whenever he's listening, you're going to get inundated by lyrics. Number one, really good 80s music that wasn't Bruce Springsteen was on the soundtrack of this album. Like, I
Oh,
know that it was probably like, if you're a fan of Springsteen, you're supposed to be like, level 42, the Cutting Crew. And I'm like, man, these are rockin' 80s songs. But like, if that's all you've heard, yeah, Springsteen's gonna blow your fucking socks off.
oh man.
But yeah, but the other cool thing is that there are moments where like it just turns into weird music videos. Like he
Cool.
starts serenading a girl, and then like everybody around him joins in like a choir. And then they do this thing that this movie spoke to me specifically because of the school that he's attending. It's like A levels in Britain. Like I don't know what those are actually called.
Yeah, but I get what you mean. Like,
Yeah, they have a radio station there, and he's like, I'd like to do an all Springsteen show, and the guy's like, no, that's not what people want to hear. It's 1987. Get the hell out of here. And they break in and they play Springsteen during the school day, and it turns into a whole like music video of them singing that song too. And
nice.
I'm like, I did not expect these cool things to happen.
Yeah. That's delightful. That is what that is. That's
Yeah.
just fucking
Well, it's
delightful.
delightful, and then it also shows that 1987, like Britain with the National Front Party and Thatcher was a lot like America today.
Surprise, surprise, history repeats itself. And now it's like the ripples are getting closer and closer.
Yeah.
Um, Man, so I gotta ask, it is a little weird despite, the huge narrative differences obviously and stylistic choices and stuff like that with between this and Yellow Submarine. What was the one that just came out?
Yesterday.
Yesterday, thank you. Who's one of them with a Y? Come on.
And
But
the
anyway,
Beatles were involved. It's
right,
fine.
right. See, I actually got real close to the mark on that one.
Yeah, I'm proud of
Um,
you.
do you feel like both of these are both celebratory films about very specific musicians, not even like music genres anymore, but specific musicians or bands, right? So, do you feel like the way that Blinded by the Light handles it is a little bit more respectful than Yesterday? Because after everything that we've talked about with Yesterday, and now a few weeks out and seeing everybody's reaction to it, or non-reaction to it, honestly, it's like it feels like in a lot of ways it wasn't outwardly disrespectful, but there was some stuff in it where I was just like, that's not Beatlesy. That's very anti that's very anti-Beatle, and in that cynical attitude it seems to show there, or here or there. Whereas everything you're talking about with Blinded by the Light, it's really interesting. I don't think of Bruce Springsteen as like delightful, but I guess in retrospect I could definitely see that. Like it's something that your 60-year-old grandparents listen to now, right? Something like that.
Right. So it's really interesting because the first thing I said after the credits had rolled was that was so much better than Yesterday. So it's kind of
Okay.
hard not to. It's sort of like Deep Impact and Armageddon. It's those like movie twins.
Yeah, yeah. That this is feeling a little bit even far for that. But now that I know the narrative of both of them, it feels very, very different than that. But yeah, it's going to be hard. People are going to probably compare these two films forever.
Right. I mean, like even I did it, and I knew 100% these things are different movies. But it's hard not to look at a foreign a person, a British person, but of like foreign background. Like he's Pakistani in this one, and he is of Indian descent in Yesterday. So like that right there is enough for people to compare the two movies.
Oh,
That
yeah.
like
Okay. The fish out of water story
yeah,
that they're telling there. Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
fish out of water, but they were still born and raised in England.
Yeah.
But you know, it's one of those things where, but you're not the king's British.
Yeah.
Like those are that's stuff that happens. That's stuff that happens more in a movie set in 1987 than in a like weird parallel universe. Maybe it's all a dream in his head, but we never got to that scene because test audiences hated it. Um, it's this thing where I think that Yesterday would have worked better after seeing Blinded by the Light if there was that scene that just showed how much he loved and respected the Beatles.
Yeah.
Like if there was a moment where like the reason I'm a musician is because of four people: John, Paul, George, and Pete Best. And
Ouch.
no, I mean I'm going for the bit. It would be Ringo. He'd say that, and it's like if the narrative supported why if he suddenly woke up in a world without the Beatles, he would feel compelled to recreate their catalog. Like it inspired me, I wanted to inspire others. But no,
Right.
Yesterday it just sounds like, oh, I can finally be successful because the Beatles never existed.
Yeah, I guess I kind of hoped for more than anything for it to be more of a narrative of like I've woken in a world in which the Beatles don't exist. I can bring the Beatles to this world and like save it essentially with the Beatles. Like I wanted it to be more about like the Beatles need to exist, so I need to be the one to make this happen. Like that type of it's exactly what you're talking about. That kind of love and respect that from the main character seems like key to what I was asking about for sure.
And no, but like it's very much in Blinded by the Light. This person just straight up loves Bruce Springsteen because he is a 17-year-old kid who like feels lost in his world, and he's introduced to this guy, and the words that he is hearing from Bruce Springsteen mirror the way that he feels inside. And he's like never had that before. And like I can think of moments for like that for me, right? My joke was I've always kind of liked Bend It Like Beckham, but I hate soccer. So like now I have my own Bend It Like Beckham because I love music.
Yeah, there you go.
Um,
Yeah, that's
so,
awesome, man.
So yeah, it's just this really awesome like narrative. But there's also this really cool thing where he's like, he might not be the best, but it means that much to me. Like I don't care if Bruce Springsteen doesn't mean as much as he does to me to you, but that's not going to change how much his lyrics and what he's saying speaks to me. And I want you to be able to respect that. And I mean, the other movie that I compared it to just briefly was something like Rocket Man, where after Rocket Man, all I wanted to do was listen to Elton John music.
Mm-hmm.
And after Yesterday, I'm like, I kind of want to play a Beatles rock band so I can be the Beatles. But like, I respect the Beatles. I'm not just trying to make a buck and make Ed Sheeran sad.
Right. Well, if we could do that as well, that's never a bad thing.
Right. But it's one of these things where I like put on E Street Radio as we're driving home, and I'm like, oh man, like this is not the Bruce Springsteen that I like. Like I like Hungry Heart, I like Dancing in the Dark, I like Born to Run. Like
Yeah.
it
No,
has to be
I
a
completely get
specific
that.
Bruce Springsteen song.
As
It's
a
not
dude
like
that can't even keep him separate from Bob Dylan, I completely understand you.
right. But I mean, there's this one thing about Bruce Springsteen, and it will always stick with me as someone's like, yeah, you must like Bruce Springsteen. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, because you're white. And I'm like, wow, I don't think I've even owned an album by Bruce Springsteen. What a weird generalization to make. Like, I don't even think of him at all, let alone think of him because of the color of my skin.
That's fucking ridiculous. Oh my god, people are the worst.
Yeah, and also, like, brief spoiler for Blind by the Light, Haley Atwell's in it, and that was a nice surprise.
Awesome. Fantastic.
So it's nice to see that while she didn't show up in Endgame, she showed up in a movie that was probably, pretty important to some people. And the best part about seeing it tonight is it just released on the 9th in Britain. So I'm as close to that release as possible. It's not the week later. But also, kudos for the fact that we're getting British movies like closer to the release date now.
Yeah.
Because I saw About Time in September, the year before it came out in America.
Oh man, yeah, no, it's pretty awesome. You know, globalization and all that is going to scare the shit out of everybody eventually. But no,
But right
I'm
now,
happy
it's
about it.
pretty cool. Like all the Pokemon, like the new Pokemon games releasing worldwide on November 15th. That
Hmm.
seems huge to me.
I mean, that is pretty fantastic. It's going to be the first time that we're all going to get to play Pokemon together as a family. And it's going to be great, man. I'm super excited. I love that kind of shit, though. Wasn't it like the Matrix Reloaded or something, or Matrix Revolution, where they like timed out the start moment all over the globe? So like in some countries it was starting at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and in other countries it was starting at like noon.
I believe it was that last one, yeah.
Yeah, because it was so important that we get that last movie all at the exact same time. It was such a global fucking event. For such a forgotten movie. I never really thought about that before. Shit.
I mean, it's better than the second one, but he
It
becomes
makes the second one
Daredevil.
it makes the second one better.
Yes, it does. It
Yeah.
elevates
Yeah.
very in the same way that At World's End elevates Dead Man's
Did
Chest.
Dead Man's Chest? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Oh man. So man, well that's great. So you saw Blind by the Light tonight, and you said that you'd seen a couple of other things. What did
Yes,
you get out to the most important film of the summer?
I believe I did.
You know exactly
Um,
what I'm talking about.
Dora and the Lost City
Yeah,
of Gold.
God damn it! Yes, this is the most important film to be made this year. I'm so excited.
I
Live action Dora movie.
have you seen it?
No, I have not gotten
You
a chance
son
to.
of a bitch! It's so good.
I know.
I created
Nothing but
some
amazing things about it.
I created some controversy by putting up on Facebook. It literally might be the best movie I've seen this year. And then people are like, Endgame, John Wick 3. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's better than both of those. I don't know how to like say the fact that I wanted to watch it again right away, but I had tickets for another movie.
That's so awesome.
I
I'm
saw a
I'm glad.
4 o'clock showing. There was a kid sitting behind me that loved it. Oh, it's so good. And I'm not going to spoil anything about it because everyone should go out and experience Dora and the Lost City of Gold
Good.
with no knowledge of what happens.
Okay, that's good to know because I'm just super excited because I love Nickelodeon movies. I don't know if we've ever talked about this before, but there was a long stretch where there hadn't been a Nickelodeon movie that I had missed in theaters. Now I think there's probably been one or two that have come out. But like, didn't they also have like a hand in like shorts and stuff like that too? There's a few pictures that you don't realize are Nickelodeon movies, so you put them back on again. But then
I
of course
don't
there's the
think
classics.
Shorts was one of those, but like Hotel for Dogs is a
Hotel
Nickelodeon
for Dogs.
movie.
What was Fun Size was the one that I always
Fun
forget was
Size,
Nick.
yeah. I'm so excited to watch it
Fantastic
again.
teen, yeah, Halloween teen comedy is that one's
The
stellar.
Spiderwick Chronicles, which is just
Right.
weird. Because
Yeah,
it's like,
see,
remember that they made a movie of those?
yeah. Back at that time when everybody was just like shotgun at the wall, like what's gonna fucking kill it? Like with
Yeah.
kid adventure films. Um, oh man. So yeah. So I've been super excited to see Dora just because like on top of it being a Nickelodeon movie, I also had this weird thing where Dora kind of grew up with my family because right around the time when Dora the Explorer became a thing, it became a cultural like phenom. My family ended up growing 2 sizes that day. That was when my cousin got married into a family of I don't know like I don't know the right term anymore, but at the time they were in the middle of the legalization process, and so like that was all part of the process, and so it became this huge shift in my family now dealing with this entire other half of the family that were from a very different background than ours. And so it's really interesting because in the family were a couple of babies that are now my niece and nephew who are awesome, and quinceañeras are going by and shit like that, but they had kind of started in on the Dora stuff at the same time that they came into the family. So like I can't tell you what the rest of my family went through in that time getting used to that expansion, getting used to that like tying together of families. But I can tell you that for me, it was me and those kids and watching a fuck ton of Dora the Explorer and eventually Go Diego Go.
Nice.
So like
Very
Dora
cool.
has just got this really weird spot in my heart. It's like it's not something that I would ever like claim to be like a huge fan of. I don't know a bunch of like weird shit about her. There's like people that are like super fans like Brony style. I'm not on that level, but I've got a huge affection for the character and so I'm super excited.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's so good. And that's again all I'm gonna say because I there are moments where I'm just like, if that had been ruined for me, I would have been so upset.
Yeah.
Like that
Um
I didn't know that was coming, and that was
nice.
awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I am I'm very excited just about like the story too because I mean again you don't have to tell me anything but from what it looks like leaning really into heavily into the Indiana Jones influences and stuff like that is exciting. So I hope there's a lot of that sort of stuff in it.
Right.
Um but we'll see when I get to it and then we'll definitely talk about it,
Oh
man.
yeah,
No
we'll
worries.
definitely do. We'll give it its proper. I bought the junior novelization so I
Huh.
could read it because I heard that the junior novelization is something special. And I'm like, I want to read it, but I don't want to read it before I see the movie. So right after I saw the movie, I bought the junior novelization. So I'm very excited for that as well.
That's really cool. That's awesome. And you know Nickelodeon actually they're tied in with not Walgreens. What is it?
Walden,
Walden.
yeah.
Aren't they? Yeah, that's how like Spiderwick came to be and all that. But yeah, so I really love their adaptations of the film movies that they've done for anything that's not already based on a book, like Harriet the Spy or something. But my favorite one of all time is the unmade classic Good Burger 2 Go.
Oh my god, yeah, that's so good where they go to Paris and
Yeah,
Ed's dating the mime.
they have to go around. Yeah, they go around the world to return some dude's change. Like that's the entire plot line of that book. Oh my
I wish
God.
it had
Yeah.
become a movie because it's such a good book.
It's fantastic. Yeah, man. Oh God. So yeah, Nickelodeon knocking it out of the park. Super excited about that. It's weird. They're kind of the like unspoken like underdogs of like teen or child cinema right now. Like they're not Disney by any stretch. They're not one of the big guys like Illumination or anything, but they consistently put out decent enough films to like keep them afloat. And that's there's something to be said for that right now when
Yeah,
everybody's trying to do
especially
like
where everybody's
blockbuster.
doing what they can.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: I loved Dora as much as I did, and my experience with Dora is pretty much a joke from "I Just Want My Pants Back," which is, come on, take the day off work. We'll watch kids' TV. We'll do a shot every time Dora explores something.
Oh man. Awesome.
Yeah,
Very, very
so very,
cool.
very cool. But then I saw, like, these are two good movies, right? And I did the compliment sandwich completely wrong. I saw a movie that was a little disappointing,
Okay.
and that was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Oh man, I'm surprised. It's got a pretty decent following right now. I too have not seen it, so I can't speak to it, but I've heard good things from everybody. I'm interested. What
So,
didn't work for you?
did you read the books as a kid? Like,
Oh
that's a
yeah, of course.
weird question.
Yeah.
What didn't work for me was so it felt like they had this really good script, but it wasn't all there. So they're like, let's take this script and jam in scary stories.
Oh, you separate.
So
Okay, I see what
it
you're
was
saying.
it was one of those things where it was weird because Dale, talking of Hobbs and Shaw, which I can't, is it really number one again?
Yeah,
I'm not
number one in box office
100%
again.
surprised, but I get it. I really Dale's review of that movie was when it was a Fast and Furious movie, I really enjoyed it. And my review for Scary Stories was when it wasn't a Scary Stories movie, I really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay,
So like
so
the original stuff is incredible, but the incorporation of the stories, no me gusta.
yeah, I mean, do you think it's as somebody that grew up with them? Like, what if I was a kid seeing these now? Like, what if this was my introduction to them?
First
Because
of all, it's not a kids movie by any
okay,
stretch of the imagination. It is a hard PG-13.
man, that's so disappointing. I wanted it to be something when I was a kid, I don't know why this is the movie I always go to when I think of this genre, but I saw The People Under the Stairs. Do you remember that movie?
Yep.
Yeah, and like I saw that when I was too young, but I was only like 8, and right, and I didn't lose my shit over it, but I probably should have waited a couple of years. Like they just don't make movies like that anymore. Gremlins falls into that too, I think.
Yeah, Gremlins definitely falls into that because it's kind of fun and funny. And then Phoebe Cates tells the story about her father getting stuck in the chimney, and
Yeah.
you're like, "What is this movie?"
That old woman getting flung off the chair is what I think of too. It's like it's funny, but if you really think about it, it's not.
Dude, the scene in the YMCA swimming pool is one of those
Uh,
moments where it's just like, oh, this movie went from like fun kids fair to like it's going to be scary from now on.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they don't do
But
movies
so
like that
that's
anymore.
really kind of what I was hoping for, getting back to kind of to form with this particular movie, because it's such an obvious way to go with it. I mean, like these were kids' books.
Right. I mean, you talk about seeing, people under the stairs at like 8. I was given the Scary Stories book at age 8.
Yeah.
And I read it, and there were things in there that freaked me out where I'm like, I can't read this story again because it scared me. But then as I grew with the book, I read them all and loved them all and had my favorites. And like a couple of my favorite stories wind up being represented in the movie, and that made me very happy. But then, because they're my favorite stories, the fact that they're not exactly how I remember them or the
Hmm.
way that they were modified to be in the movie just didn't work for me.
Oh
Like,
man,
so
that's a
like
shame.
that was weird. But, like those are books that meant a whole lot to me. And I talk about like I was exposed to all sorts of folklore as I grew. That was really the big one where I like got that book, and that book features 2 different appendices. Like
Yeah.
one is like just credit to where the story came from, so like this is an African American folklore story. This is from Canada. This is that. But then there's also like the research that Alvin Schwartz did into making his own version of the story.
Yeah.
Like I heard 8 different versions of the one where the girl's mother goes missing, and I picked and chose the parts that I thought made that the most compelling story. So it was just very it means a lot to me. And then like there's that part of me where I'm like I dig it because of course these stories would change a little bit, and that's like the nature of folklore. So I wasn't upset when they were getting changed like
Yeah.
these small ways, but then like it just didn't make sense with the narrative at all.
Yeah.
And one of the stories that they feature is The Dream, which like that has a visual attached to it that is like burned into your mind if you've ever read the books. And they perfectly recreate that visual in a 3D space, but everybody was like laughing at it. And everyone who laughed, I'm like, so you've never read these books before? You're here because you wanted a horror movie. There's been like a lack of them. And this is like, finally, horror movie season is here. We're going to see this one. But there were also like young kids in there because I think people thought what you thought, that this is going to be a way to share the story with my kid. And no, it's not.
Man. Yeah, that might be the most disappointing part about it is again, going back to funny enough what we were talking about with Yellow Submarine there, is that the lack of respect to the original material starts to kind of really show, and that's a shame, because like it is a thing that is so loved, and I feel like it's loved in a very special kind of way, because I feel like everybody discovers scary stories, that whole milieu, that whole that whole series of books, and like the attitude and lifestyle around that is all about like finding it on your own and like keeping it to yourself, and then every now and then you and a friend are like, remember that scary stories book? Yeah. And then like you forget about it for a while, and then it pops back up. It's like a scary story unto its fucking self, honestly. And so like it's perfect, right? And to be able to capture that on film would be something magical. And again, I feel like part of that is the childhood like innocence of like finding that book in the school library. Nobody else has told you about it. You feel like you're getting away with something because it's like this like tall black book with like spider web writing and stuff on it, or whatever version it looked like when you got it, right? Like, and it's special to you because like you said, you're given it at this like ripe age where it kind of becomes formative. And it sucks that the movie doesn't capture that.
Yeah. And it doesn't even like try to, but there's nothing more like talking about how formative it is than when they redid all the illustrations in like
Mm.
2010 and
Hmm.
people lost their collective minds over that. Cuz they're like, "No, no, 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 no. These stories are nothing without the friggin' animation."
Yeah, yeah, it's weird. People do that a lot in book like rewrites and stuff when there's like when the new illustrations for Harry Potter started getting made and stuff, there was a bunch of people, but I've never seen it be so vitrolic, like the vitriol of the fans of scary stories being like, I will burn you if you change these pictures. It was like, okay, all right, man.
Yeah. And like and to the fact that that's how they're out again. Like
Yeah,
those ones are super rare. I kind of want to track them down cuz like I imagine there's some sort of horror to those images as well.
right,
Like just not like, they're not pen and ink drawings
right.
with like a little color. I don't know. It's something that means a lot to me. And all right, so here's my question cuz I've never seen it. Have you seen the new It? I've never seen it. I
I
just
have,
asked.
yeah, yeah, I have seen it. I need to sit down and give it a new watch before the new sequel comes out. So I'm
Right.
not talking about it till the second half is around. But
Well,
anyway,
that's
yes.
completely fine. But would you consider that a movie that's child friendly? It's quiet. We have dead air as you
No,
can
no,
think.
no. So it's not. It's not.
That
Yeah.
is what it felt like this movie was inspired by. Because I cheered at the very beginning when I found out that it was set in 1967.
Hmm.
Like the fact that I'm like, set in the past, that's awesome. Because
Yeah.
it should be set in the past. Because the way that it comes to you when you find these books as sort of like a retelling of things, of past events.
Hmm.
Like, so it's awesome. Like, you feel like real cool about it.
Well, and
Um,
67's perfect because it's a year where not much is going on in a moment. So like it kind of becomes a moment out of time and space because there's not like a war background. There's not like a you know what I mean? Like there's no huge event going on that's distracting you and reminding you every second, hey, this is 1967. You just feel like this isn't now.
right. Well, we were 6 years away from the Vietnam War ending. So, like, that's still pretty heavy. And there's a small plot point about the Vietnam War.
Do they keep going to does one of them have like war flashbacks? See, that's a shame because that means that they're not using that time period properly as far as I'm concerned
But
because the
but
material should feel timeless.
yeah, it does still feel timeless. Like there's still like a beautiful thing about that timelessness that you're talking about. But like people forget how long the Vietnam War went on. So like it's still there, but it's at that point where it was just sort of background noise.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's cool, but it's I wish I liked it more. I really wish I liked it more. There's still a moment where I cheered out loud and the whole theater laughed at my cheer, but it was perfect. The line was perfect. And I'm like, but it wasn't a perfect scary storyline. It was just like a perfect the other story that's going on line.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's weird. It's like I feel like I've seen a lot of those mashup movies this year, and this is just another in that long line of them.
Yeah, I thought we'd gotten past this. I feel like I said this last time too, but I'm gonna sit and I thought we'd gotten past the idea of taking the skeleton of something and then just throwing different meat on it. Like it sucks.
Yeah. But yeah, so those are the movies that I saw. It was fun.
Yeah.
Two are I'm excited to see again. One maybe I'll watch if there's like an extended version
Yeah,
or
there's a
with
free weekend
some
on Cinemax.
commentary. Yeah, like
Yeah, I
but it's
get you,
not
man.
one that I'm like itching to. I want to read the books again. Like I'm looking over at the Halloween corner, which is
Hmm.
across the way from where we record, and I'm like, I know Scary Stories, the big like I have a hardcover bound trilogy. I'm like, I know you're like accessible, and I kind of want to grab it. And also talking about like pulling out those stories to like tell. I drove to West Virginia once on my birthday
Yeah.
just kind of on a whim, 17-hour drive. Why not? And that, while we were tired, I started telling scary stories from memory. And it's how we stayed up for that drive.
Oh
So,
man.
like, that is definitely, It is. It's a formulative thing that you like share when it's most appropriate. And I will never forget. I was telling "Wait Till Martin Comes," which is one of my absolutely favorite stories from that book. And I'm like, and then a second cat, the size of a cat, and all of us just erupted in laughter for like a solid half an hour because like that's not how it's told in the story. I just oh, and that's the beauty. Like, and that's it. It should be like these evolving stories, and that's just not what happens.
Yeah. Boomer. Well, that's a boomer for sure, man.
Yeah.
Man. So yeah, your big movie weekend. Do you do anything besides movie stuff?
I had some people visiting from North Carolina. I celebrated 2 birthdays yesterday. I watched Rocco's Modern Life Static Cling, but my thoughts are still not really organized on that one. I think
I
I
don't
did
know, man.
myself a disservice, is the
Oh.
easiest way that I can say that.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about it next week because I
Yeah.
watched it too, but I kind of watched it in a stupor when it dropped at like 3 o'clock in the morning. So I don't have all my thoughts gathered about it either. I remember laughing uproariously at it, but part of it was because of the tiredness. Uh,
Yeah, I can see that. I guess I'll give my little thing is I own Rocco's Modern Life on DVD, and I threw in the episode that it was like a direct follow up to, and then like the quality was not the same.
yeah.
Is
I mean,
and that was like I'm like maybe I shouldn't have watched this episode before watching the new episode.
oh man, I'm excited to see when Zim drops for
I'm
sure.
very excited for Zim this Friday, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, I believe so. I don't think
yeah.
they spaced it out much at all.
And I'm excited because I was talking with some people at the party I was at yesterday, and they're like, I'm so excited for Zim. Do you think he's going to succeed and all this? And I'm like, no. I think
No,
like this is just going to be an episode.
that's he can't succeed. He literally cannot succeed. That if he succeeds, they've gotten the character wrong.
Yeah, I'm like, no. Like, please temper all expectations for Invader Zim Enter the Flurpus, because even the creator was like, it's just going to be an episode. Not even like a really good episode.
See, I think that's really good. Tempering expectations and excitement, right? I think that's
Yes.
good. Well, speaking of online movies dropping, I was able to watch Batman Hush finally a little early, like we
Oh,
discussed a couple.
awesome.
It is awesome, kind of. I don't know. I'm in a weird place because it got me thinking this week, and this was kind of what I was texting you about the other day, Deb, where I was like, I gotta save this for the show, because it got me thinking about the nature of mysteries. Because and I mean specifically those mysteries that we grow to like know and love, and how do they still work for us when we know them? Because I don't know what you like. How familiar are you with the Hush story to begin with?
Oh, I'm pretty familiar with Hush. He's basically the anti-Batman. He's Bizarro Batman, kinda.
That is definitely there is definitely elements of that for sure, to the point where I actually wish they would explore them more.
Yeah.
But the big thing about the actual introduction of this character, this is a character that was only introduced in, what was it, like 2003 or something?
Yes, because I
Yeah, it
remember
was.
when they came out.
Yeah. So the whole point was that Jeff Loeb wanted to create an anti Bruce Wayne more than an anti Batman, to be fair. And so he creates this character Hush, who over a series of, I don't know, it must have been 24 issues or something like that. I
It
think it
was
was a 2 year, three year.
issue. It was 3 8 issue series. It was a Hush trilogy.
Right.
So yeah, so it was 24. But I
Yeah.
remember like, how is Hush still happening? I remember
So
saying that.
what's really interesting is it introduces a lot of ideas that Jeff Loeb goes on to play with later on, including it's the first time that Jason Todd shows up back from the dead.
Yeah.
Not for real, right? Because the whole point of the Hush story is it's a mystery of who it is, and it's a really well told one, and it's a beautifully laid out one, and there's a lot of like false leads and misdirection, but they don't feel cheap ever. It always feels like spot on. And so I mean, this is gonna spoil Hush because they changed the ending in the movie is essentially what I'm getting at. And so
What?
like yeah, so well yeah, so Hush in the books, it's masked figure who's wrapped in bandages. We don't know who he is. We just know he wears mask. He wears the bandages and a trench coat, right? And that's important because later on in the story, other characters are start wearing that in order to trick Batman into thinking Hush is this or that. So throughout the story, he's hiring the best and brightest of the rogues, right? Like, I mean, everything down to the Joker ends up being hired by Hush in some fashion to just piss off Batman in some way, to just completely throw him off balance. Meanwhile, the backdrop of this is also this is the first time where Catwoman and Batman are now a thing, and specifically Batman and Catwoman, not Bruce and Selina. This is the introduction of that entire concept, which ends up leading to the King
not
stuff that's been
wedding.
going on. Yeah. So this is really where all of this stuff that we all get to know about Batman in the 2000s really starts to kick off, right? Is with the Hush story, the way that he interacts with certain characters. There's moments with Ra's al Ghul where there's more respect than anger. It's the first time that we see him actually like seeing Raz as like almost a father figure in some weird way, which becomes important for like a ton of stories later on. And then on top of that, there's also the way that he interacts with the Joker, the way that there's a very big moment in it where he almost kills the Joker because he finds the Joker over the body of his best friend Thomas Elliot. The Joker has shot this dude dead, right? And so the Joker spends the entire time being the Joker, but also trying to proclaim his innocence over killing Bruce Wayne's best friend, Batman. This is Batman's best friend, Thomas Elliot, right? And so, like, he almost puts him down, which is important later on because Jeff Loeb ends up doing the Red Hood story, and it's a story all about how he realizes he can't kill the Joker. So we see him in this moment almost do it, and he gets stopped by Jim Gordon, and then from there, it becomes this thing for him where he realizes he can't cross that line, which is like that is Batman 101, right? Like, so like a lot of this stuff is super important. We find out through all of these different villains, this stuff is happening, and then we get down to the big bad, and there's a moment of misdirection in the comics where you realize that Edward Nygma, who early on in the story was just in the background of a story that Batman stops, and it has nothing to do with the narrative, you find out he's actually been the one who came up with this huge plan, right? And it's this whole thing where he's revealed as this big bad, like he's the villain, he's the guy in this. But we've also just seen Harvey Dent has been the guy going around in bandages and a trench coat, right? But then the ending of the whole thing is the reveal that Thomas Elliot has never been dead. It was all faked. The Joker stuff was actually with Clayface, right? That's how deep all of this goes with the villains. It gets like crazy. And then what happens with Harvey Dent is he actually got cured by Thomas Elliot. So we now have a Harvey Dent with a full face, no problems, and he's gone back to being sane because of it. He ends up teaming up with Batman in the end to stop Thomas Elliot, who was just using the Riddler. It's crazy, but the whole thing is this reveal that Thomas Elliot, who has always wanted to be Bruce Wayne, to the point where he started like killing his parents.
Yep.
And like that is like the whole thing. Thomas Elliot, crazy. He shows up later on, has a fantastic storyline later on where he steals Catwoman's heart, like literally steals her heart and keeps her on like life support. It's crazy, and it's one of my favorite Batman stories. So Thomas Elliot shows up from time to time. He's popped up. He's in the Arkham games. He's shown up in. I think he's alluded to at least in Teen Titans or something like that. It's crazy. Like he is not huge enough though for everybody to even have an idea of who he is or know that story, right? So this movie comes out and they completely change the entire ending, and I don't know if I don't like it or not, because like part of it is that it changes it as somebody that knows that story is like in love with that story and wasn't expecting, I guess, right? And the thing is the change that they make is not completely unearned. Is what they decide to do is through all of this, Thomas Elliot gets killed, just like you think, and all of that, and anybody that's read it before is like, okay, we know what's going on now. And then all of a sudden they show his dead body at some point. And it's a flash before they reveal what the actual like twist is. But there's this moment where all of a sudden there's Thomas Elliot's dead body, and you're like, wait a minute, but he's not dead, right? And then they go to Hush and they reveal that it has actually just been the Riddler all along. The end. Like, it doesn't go any deeper than that. And then there's like 20 more minutes of them just beating the crap out of the Riddler. And it's just really, it's bizarre because it does tell the Hush story. It uses all of these elements that I expect, but in the end, it had a different payoff, a different ending. And it's not an unrealistic ending, right? It's just not nearly as I don't know. It's weird. So I have these feelings about it because the thing is, everybody's actually been really enjoying it. Like, there's all this stuff out there about how it's another one animated is knocked WB animated is knocked out of the park. Like, it expands the universe that they've been building with this very specific Batman, played by Jason Mara, by the way, beautifully. I forgot that he was the one playing Batman, which is how he knows Jeff Loeb and ends up as the Patriot on on Agents of Shield. Um, but like, it's this beautiful thing where like they've been building this world and everybody's really into what they've been doing. Everyone they put out, everybody's like, yeah, this is great. This universe is so dark and gritty, but still like enjoyable and fun. And then like I don't know, like should I not worry so much they didn't follow that narrative? Because I mean it still had to be a mystery, right? And I guess it was kind of fun for it to still be a mystery for me. I don't know. I don't know.
All right, so it's real interesting that you bring this up because in my memories on Facebook, because those are words I literally just said, I had come up in 2016 rather than like judge every movie at the end of the year, I judged at the end of each month. And in July, my favorite movie I saw was Nerve, and my least favorite movie I saw was The Killing Joke. Now,
Okay.
The Killing Joke has a big problem that is not even related to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
The big problem with The Killing Joke is that they add a 30-minute Batgirl cartoon to the front of it that then does not tie into the narrative of The Killing Joke.
Hmm.
It's just like, I've always wanted them to be together. I'm Bruce Timm, Batman.
Yeah, yeah. It's not just that there's a 30-minute Batgirl, because I could even like offhandedly justify that. It's what they do in that Batgirl story that's really the problem,
Yeah,
turning her into a weird sex object for Bruce Wayne.
right. Yeah, she's and what's even weirder is that they said that it was all in the search for character development. So it's not just her getting fridged at the beginning of it. So we'll
Yeah.
develop her. But then like literally nothing that happens in that 30 minutes is tied into
Ugh,
what then later happens.
right.
And it's very odd. I'm
Hmm.
like, I dug this until I didn't, and then none of this mattered. Because once the Batgirl cartoon ends, it is a faithful recreation of the Killing Joke. Just, it moves. So, like, really cool visual stuff is now, like, in motion, and like, it's even freakier going through, like, the Joker's Funhouse ride.
Right.
As, like, the people are there and moving. But then it got to the end, and I mean, the end of The Killing Joke is iconic. It's, Joker tells the joke about the two guys escaping from the insane asylum, and he's like, I'll hold the flashlight and you can walk. And no, 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 because I know you'll just turn it off when I'm halfway across. And then they just laugh, this like cathartic laughter that just fills the speech bubbles and the screen and all of the panels of the comic. And it's weirdly satisfying in the comic book because like you wonder that's the joke of the book, and then they did it in the movie and that's how it ended, and like the whole theater was just kind of like, really, that's it? Like, all these other changes were like cool and seeing it, but like, that's still how you're gonna end it? And
Yeah.
I always remember that because the girl seated behind me goes, "That's how the book ends." And I'm like, "Yeah, but that's not why people wanted to see an animated adaptation of The Killing Joke, right?
Yeah.
We wanted to see things changed and modified, 30 years later." So
Yeah.
it's and I mean, like, because I'm egocentric, I feel like DC read my stupid rant about an adaptation should change things, and that's why Hush changed it.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like, because you said it, and I'm like, oh, I know exactly who Hush is. It's Thomas, and I know this, and he wanted to be Batman. He wanted to be Bruce Wayne so bad, and it's interesting to make it the Riddler because that one time, like the whole time you're expecting that other shoe to fall. Does the other shoe fall like after the credits or anything like that, or is it just like
Oh
canon?
God.
This is
Well, now I need to go back and watch the fucking credits. I didn't think about that. No, no. I mean, like they're pretty in your face with the dead body of Thomas Elliot.
Okay.
It's supposed to be like a scary moment reveal, like, wow, oh my God, he's dead. So like to pull to step on those toes would be a little weird, I guess. But no, I wouldn't put it past them, I guess.
Yeah,
Now
that's
I gotta go
well,
watch.
especially as I think back to I remember like that was at the peak of me hanging out in comic book stores was when Hush was coming out, and it
Yeah.
literally was a conversation like, when is this gonna end? Like it was an interesting story, but like it just needs to be done. We want Batman to do other things again. And like that's
Yeah.
how I came to things like The Killing Joke and things like that because well if you're looking for some like something to as a break from Hush, try this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it'd be really interesting for them to just keep this canon and move forward because they are building this universe and they do refer to things from time to time about past movies. I caught a joke the other day that Damien makes where you're like, oh yeah, that's the other thing is Damien is now added into the story because he's canon in the movie universe, which is not too bad. It just changes like who gets attacked at where. But yeah, I caught a moment where he references something about Nightwing letting something go with Harley, which is something that happened in the Harley Quinn movie, which was 2 movies earlier. Like it's weird how they're building this whole like this thing together, and they're doing it pretty well from what I can tell. And like I said, people are enjoying them, so like I can't knock it for like doing what it did. And I honestly didn't hate it. It's just it's so weird to me. I guess it's weird to me because it means that Thomas Elliot, if this is canon, cannot be Hush going forward. Like they've pretty well put the kibosh on any story involving him going forward, which is a bit of a bummer. Because as I said, one of my favorite stories is the Heart of Hush story, in which it does not go on nearly as long. And like I said, he literally steals Catwoman's heart instead of like Batman on like errands. It's fucked up,
Yeah.
and like that can't happen now. Like also because of that ending, there was never any way for Harvey Dent to be involved in the story. So he's just completely removed. So not only is he not there and doesn't get to be cured, which is really interesting, especially because if you consider Jeff Loeb is the one that wrote Long Halloween. So
Mm-hmm.
with him, we got the break and then the cure, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, you don't get any of that like chance with a weirdly put together Harvey Dent later on, because without that reveal at the end, Thomas Elliot can't be the surgeon, the master surgeon that saved Harvey Dent. The Riddler can't be that. It's
Yeah.
very weird.
It's like it also so Thomas Elliot, I imagine, completely innocent in everything.
Yeah, they don't even get into anything. They talk about his parents dying, but they don't get into anything about it having anything to do with him wanting to not be with them anymore or whatever his fucking reason is in the book. Because the important thing to remember is they also died before Bruce's parents. So he wasn't emulating that. He was just a murderous asshole.
Yeah, like that's the craziest thing is that when I think of Hush, I think of anti-Batman, which is again not 100% true because he is really more of an anti-Bruce Wayne. Like he wants to be Bruce Wayne, but it's also that he murdered his parents.
Hmm.
And like
Right.
to take that away is insane because
Yeah.
it's like those like that would be like the bullet points for Hush would be bandage, surgeon, murdered parents.
Yeah, well, and it's important that he murders his and Bruce loses his. Like that whole dynamic between the two of them is key in at least in Hush stories. It's weird because I guess it's not going to have such a major effect on the whole universe. So, and I think that they probably weighed that and they thought, well, this isn't going to change too much. It just means what? There's 3 or 4 stories we can't do. There's no chance of a cool cameo later on. That sucks, but it's something I guess they're willing to sacrifice. And I mean, the other thing is that they don't have to keep tying themselves to this universe. At some point they can just do things out of this universe. But for right now, it's doing them too good. Otherwise,
Yeah, and yeah, it's just that just it bums me out to like close the door on that because it's
mhm.
also like the other reason why that matters so much is that a big part of Bruce Wayne's journey is that he blames his parents for their death. That
Mhm.
like if I hadn't like not wanted to see that scary thing, we wouldn't have been on the street at night.
Yeah, I mean, he blames himself more than he
Yeah.
blames his parents. Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
not his parents. I mean, he blames himself for his parents' death.
yeah.
So like that was one of the cool things about Hush was Oh, I'm definitely responsible for my parents' death.
Right, right.
You just think you're responsible for your parents' death. I did it. I pulled the trigger.
Well, and I even really love the there's this weird story that kind of circulates with Thomas Elliot where he starts to do surgery on himself to try and become more like Bruce, which I think is such a fascinating story, which we'll never get. We'll never have the opportunity of anything like that either. It's just, yeah, I think that's what it is. It's more than anything, it's I'm still dealing with the fact that it means that there's going to be this whole branch of the DC universe that this universe is just not going to be able to touch, and that's just disappointing.
Right. And that's it. Because on that one hand, it's very cool that it's like, nah, it was the Riddler. Riddler stepped up his game.
Yeah,
Did this.
yeah, exactly.
Very
Exactly
cool.
That's the whole like narrative twist is that moment when Batman's like, of course nobody would have suspected you. You're a C-lister. I think he even uses that term when he's talking to him. So there's this whole idea that they are acknowledging that the Riddler is this character that rides that line between ignorable and also extremely dangerous.
Yeah, that is a little disappointing, just in terms of where they can go next.
Yeah.
But
It's weird
again,
that I did read that, and it's funny because dealing with all of this Riddler stuff with Hush, I did also just recently reread Zero Year, the Scott Snyder run for Batman, not year one, but like apparently like year 1.2. Like, and it's I love it. It's one of my favorite like Batman origin style stories. I love origin stories that don't deal with that don't deal with the Wayne deaths, because like there's too much of that. It's the same thing with Peter Parker, and I don't need to see Uncle Ben die every time, but I do need an introductory story. So give me a good one of those to let me know what your Spider-Man is. Yeah, and the 0 Years is a really good example of that, and the Riddler is the big bad of that one. And the way that he starts off as this unassuming background character and then becomes it, like it's such a good story for him.
yeah. That's certainly something. Was that on like DC Universe, or did you find it through other means?
Oh, I own 0 Year.
No, no,
Zero
no.
Year. Oh,
I meant
Hush.
Hush.
Hush. No, no. It's up on the DC Universe. They moved the release date up by a week for everything so that people could check it out. And so it came out on the 6th when it was actually not supposed to come out until sometime this Tuesday tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the other thing is, I feel like that narrative change might also be the reason why they moved it up. Like
Possibly. We
we're
talked
doing,
about that.
yeah,
Yeah, I think partly that. I think the idea that they weren't sure how people were going to take to it, so it was already on shaky ground. And then we talked about them losing Swamp Thing and having 3 weeks of dead air, not knowing what to fill it with because it was supposed to be new episodes of Swamp Thing. So I think that was also part of it. So I think it was just cynicism all around for sure. But yeah.
yeah. Oh, I mean, but I'm just saying, like we had talked like maybe this is why, but now it feels like definitely why.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And now maybe people will like rewatch it for like Easter eggs and fill those 3 weeks on their own. So who knows? But yeah, so we watched some stuff. That
Yeah,
was fun.
it was a big week for doing some watching.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I finished The League. That was fun.
Fantastic.
I kind
I'm
of
so
miss
glad that
it.
you did a rewatch of the league. I miss it. I think it went out on top though. I think
Oh, it
went out
definitely
just
went out on top. It
that last season is so out of this fucking world. Like I mean, isn't that the season with the cartoon episode
Yep.
and the yeah,
Yeah.
like it gets ridiculous.
Well, and that's all because the 6th season was supposed to be the last season, and then they just threw money at them, so they did whatever they wanted to with that last season.
Good on them,
Yeah,
man.
and it was enjoyable. Like I'm glad I rewatched it, but like again, I now have this like whole like what am I gonna watch next?
Oh man.
Which I had
Yeah, I
an
don't
idea,
know.
but I forgot. Oh, I did Single Parents. I rewatched
Nice.
Single Parents, which I still recommend, even though it's like weirdly just New Girl, but they all have a kid.
Yeah. I bought and have rewatched the what's the Wild, what's the fucking Will Arnett show there? Running Wild. Running Wild. It was up for sale for $5 on Google Play this week, and I had some Google Play money actually from doing a whole bunch of like surveys and shit for them. So I got it for free from Google, and I got the entire series in
Was that the
HD.
one where he's like an actor?
No, he's a that's Flaked, I think is the one that you're thinking of. That's
Yes,
the
yes.
Netflix
Okay, yeah.
original. No, Running Wild was the one season show he did with Felicity there. What's her name?
Are we really looking for Carrie Russell's name?
Yeah, Carrie Russell. So it's him and Carrie Russell, and they were childhood sweethearts. He is super uber beyond believable rich, and she was the housekeeper's daughter, and they were like best friends growing up. And of course, she becomes like an environmental activist and runs off. With David Cross, funny enough, runs off into the fucking like woods when she grows up, and he is still super rich, and so it's all about her moving back in with him and their love story. And it only got one season because it wasn't hugely successful, but I think they were pretty well aware that they were not going to get a good a second chance because they end the story in a pretty decent like we could continue if you let us place, but it's a decent ending enough for a romantic comedy. So it's like a really nice one season package, and it's great. There's also one other main character that I haven't mentioned, but she's such a great reveal.
All right, well, I'll wait now. I'll hunt it down. I'm sure I could find it. But this talk makes me want to watch the Goodwin Games again because that was 7 episodes of a TV show that I loved. T.J. Miller, that Scott guy, Scott Foley, and
Nice.
then an unknown actress as their sister, and their father passes away, and is like, "You need to solve these riddles to get my inheritance."
That's amazing. How stupid is that? I love it.
It's so good. That show is crazy good, and it's 7 episodes, and it's just like I understand why you didn't catch on, but there's 7 pretty fun episodes, and there's my hard drive with it, so I'm gonna watch that. That'll be fun.
Nice. Oh
All
man,
right. So yeah, if you want to talk to me about my feelings on Yesterday, Blinded by the Light, Dora in the City of Gold, or scary stories to tell in the dark, you can find me on Twitter at Devin D. Decker.
and if you want to recommend some more one season romantic comedies for me to watch, I think I'm going to do Manhattan Love Story next. You can
Oh
find
my
me at
God, man,
Siege
that
vs. the
love
World.
story was so good. I
I
cut
know.
you off.
No, it's fine. Siege vs. the World on Twitter.
Also, Mad Love, if you can find Mad Love.
Ooh,
Jason Biggs, Sarah Chalk, Tyler Labine, and Cheryl from Archer. I know her name, Judy Greer.
nice. Okay. All
Like
right. I'm in.
that's a show that like CBS was. Oh my God, How I Met Your Mother is huge. We need to create a million of those.
Nice. Fantastic. Yeah.
So yeah. So thank you for listening, William. Blind us by some light, buddy.
Thank you for listening to the Stay Report with your host Devin Decker and Stephen Selwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.